Welcome to the channel, guys. We are back again, and today I'm going to be doing a fragrance collection video, so stay tuned for that. And if you like the content, guys, hit that like and subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. I decided to put myself back in front of the camera again, as I've gotten a lot, or at least a couple of comments asking why I'm not showing up on camera anymore. So here I am. Hope you enjoy it, and hope you enjoy this episode. So a subscriber actually asked me to do a collection video. I'm going to be breaking this into 2 or 3 videos, depending. I do have a lot of niche fragrances, so that might turn into 2 videos itself. But for right now, I'm planning on doing a designer collection and a niche collection. So it's going to be at least 2 videos, just because I don't really like having videos that are, 20, 30 minutes. So I'm going to, instead of just quickly showing you each fragrance, I'm going to show you them, say a few things about them at the very least, and how I feel about them now after having had them for a long time. So I'm going to start with actually one. I'm not sure to call this a designer, but this is Rainier Insurrection 2, or Insurrection Lee Pure, or sorry, Wild. And this is actually a clone of Pure Havane. So this is why I'm including it in the designer list, because it essentially clones a designer fragrance. And I think you can get this for like 20 bucks. And honestly, even having Naxos and having smelled Pure Havane, I think this is actually still pretty good value. It has this really nice cherry tobacco. Obviously, the quality is not as high as something like Naxos or Pure Havane, but for the price point, this is really good. It does perform quite well, and so it's a good one for like the colder weather, and it's very inexpensive. I picked this one up again, just smelled it today, right now, and again, very happy with this one. I do like this one, and once it starts to cool down a little bit, I definitely think this is one I'm going to wear a little bit more. So I know I've said before I don't really like cheap fragrances, but that's because oftentimes I find I don't reach for them very often. This is one that can definitely be reached for. It's a beautiful bottle too. I love the design. And one that I'm still going to reach for. So that is one of my fragrances. The next one is actually the first fragrance that I ever purchased. So it's Bleu de Chanel Parfum. Well, actually, it's not the first one. I had Nautica Voyage for a while. I had some other fragrance. I forget what it was. But this is the first designer purchase, major designer purchase that I've had for a long time. So Bleu de Chanel Parfum. I still like this one, although I think it's one that I've had for so long and I've worn it so many times that when I eventually finish this 100 ml, I probably won't buy it again. Not because it's a bad fragrance. I still think it's really good. It's just, again, I've had it so much and I've worn it so often that it's not one that for me I would like to buy again. I feel like this is why I don't have backup bottles most of the time. A lot of times it comes down to, after getting through 100 ml of something, you're just ready for something different. And so this is still a great fragrance. I still reach for it once in a while. I probably will have this for a couple more years because I don't use it that often. But it is a nice fragrance for sure. One that I do enjoy. Another one that I have is L'Homme Ideal Cologne. So I bought into the hype on this one. Thought I would try it out, and it is, or at least it was when I bought it, very inexpensive. I think this was like $20 or something. So I'm not too upset that I don't really like this. I think it was hyped up a lot more than it should have been. It's not really that good for me. I think it's a little bit unusual, especially for a summer fragrance. Like, there's something about the weird creamy almond thing happening in a fresh fragrance that to me just doesn't really work. I am going to do a review on this. I know I've said this a couple times. I am going to do a full review on this. I want to just do it justice, put it on a couple more times and really think about it and talk about what it actually smells like, and then, bring my own opinions into it. But there's L'Homme Ideal Cologne. Another one that I have is a fairly recent purchase. I'm very happy with this one. This is Bogre Manneroli. And this is one that started to show up on discounters. And I think at the price you can get it for discounters, especially if you can get a tester. I paid, I think, $42 US for that. So this, to me, that's cheap. But generally speaking, this is still bordering on cheapy for a lot of people. And I think for the price point, it's really good. It does have a really nice, bright, fresh, invigorating neroli opening. It has a little bit of what I call that prickly neroli feel. It does have a somewhat generic dry down once it gets into, about hour 5 or 6 of the fragrance. It's a kind of a generic woody fragrance, but it's not bad. But I do sometimes get a little bit of a generic quality to it. But I mean, if you like Neroli Portofino, you like all those other fragrances, this is similar, same kind of idea, lasts a lot better, performs a lot better. And I do actually really enjoy this one. Great fresh one, easy to wear, very casual fragrance in my opinion. And I do really like that one. The next one that I have, actually a subscriber a long time ago did want me to check this fragrance out. And I bought it, and the first time I sprayed it, I absolutely hated it. It just smelled to me like a synthetic mess. But I let it sit for about 4 or 5 months, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to try it again. Why not? And I loved it. This is a really quality, sort of boozy leather fragrance. It has kind of that bad boy feel to it with the notes that it has. It's a masculine fragrance. It has a very nice, cool bottle there. Very inexpensive. I think $20, $25. And the performance sucks, but at this price point, I don't really care. I will happily reapply this 2 or 3 times depending on how long I'm out. Not a big deal. But it's a really nice one. Great for the fall, great for the winter. Very inexpensive. Really do enjoy that one. Now, the next two I have, I'm actually going to talk about them at the same time because they're the same. They're flankers of the same fragrance. Encre Noir Sport and Encre Noir à l'Extrême. I think actually, I keep going back and forth. I think Sport is my favorite. Both these can be gotten, by the way, on discounters really, really cheap. $20, $25 as well. Maybe $30, I'm not entirely sure, but very inexpensive. But Sport I like just because I found it a little easier to wear. It's not quite as earthy and soily, so this one definitely has a strong sort of soily feel to it, but this one manages to be a little bit fresher, a little bit more aquatic, while still being very dark and very vetiver heavy, and it dries down quite soapy. It has a soapy sort of vetiver quality, and so I really like that. I think it's very wearable, especially it's interesting for a summer fragrance. It's a little bit different. So that is the 2 Encre Noirs I have. Both of them very good, and I think having smelled a lot more fragrances, a lot more vetiver fragrances, even high quality vetiver fragrances, I think that these do a really good job, especially at the price point. If you're just trying to get into vetiver, or you really like vetiver, I know these ones have been talked about a lot, but these are great choices. And if you haven't really tried vetiver, I do recommend the Sport because I think it's the easiest to wear, but it is nonetheless a great fragrance, both of them. The next one, Aqua Essencial White. This is actually, or was, a limited edition Japanese exclusive. My friend got it for me for my birthday. So it's nice to have. This is actually just a really fresh, easy to wear fragrance. I often wear this one if I'm going to the gym. It's a good t-shirt fragrance, great for spring. I feel it's a little too light for the really high heat, although that is something where it could work. So I feel like spring when it's warm but not really, really hot out, this one works well because it is a fairly subtle, very a little bit more of a quiet fragrance. Even though it does have some projection to it, it isn't one that's a heavy fragrance at all. So, I mean, of course, I love my heavy fragrances like Wajan, Rosé All Day, but it is nice to have a really nice, great casual t-shirt fragrance like this, and also a nice one to wear to the gym. I don't want to wear something heavy if I go to the gym. I want to just wear something super light that just has a little bit of freshness to it, and that does the job really well. Another one, Montblanc Individual. I actually have not worn this in a long, long time, so this is kind of one of the reasons why I've always said, I don't really like cheap fragrances. It's not because there aren't good ones. There's plenty of good ones. It's just that I have fragrances like this a lot that I just never reach for. I never get. If you do like this fragrance, if you're going to wear it, it's a great price. I think, again, $20, something like that. $30 maybe. But very, very inexpensive. And it is nice. It has kind of a clean linen vibe with a sweet raspberry. Some people say, I haven't actually smelled Original Santal by Creed, but people often talk about that as a clone of this fragrance. Although some people have even said this one smells like Joop or whatever it's called. And I don't recall what that smells like, but so I just never really wear this anymore, and that's the only problem I have with it, just because I have so many other fragrances. I wear so many other ones. This one just never makes it really into the rotation. But it is a nice, clean, inoffensive smell. So if you want something maybe for the office, something for just smelling good but not super standout-ish and not risky at all, this is a good choice. So the next one, actually, this is yet another instance where, you know, a cheap fragrance didn't do it for me. And I know there's expensive fragrances that aren't good either. The thing is that I just find I usually sample the expensive ones first because they're expensive. And these ones, getting a sample is usually sometimes half the price of the bottle, so you might as well just buy the bottle. And then if you don't like it, you're stuck with the bottle. So that's kind of what I don't like about it. You know, I've got many decants of expensive fragrances that I do not like at all. I like this one on the opening because it does remind me of Crypto Mint. And Crypto Mint is one that I actually really like. I've considered buying it. But this is lighter. It smelled like Crypto Mint for about like 2 minutes. And then there's this really strong sort of toothpastey vibe that I don't like. So it is minty, but it's more like a minty toothpaste. And for me, that doesn't really do it. So I have this full bottle now that I just am never going to wear. It does have a little bit of a veterinary-ness in the dry down, if I recall, and it's not bad. It's not a terrible fragrance. It's just the toothpaste vibe that really puts me off. If it was more of like a mint that wasn't reminding me of toothpaste, I would definitely be a much bigger fan of the fragrance. Next one, Azzaro Wanted by Night. This one is also fairly inexpensive, if I recall. And this is a nice one for, you know, fall. It's also a nice one for dates. I find that it's sweet, it's playful, and I have gotten compliments with this one. But it is nice and interesting because it's spicy with a cinnamon. It's very sweet. It has this really interesting orange vibe in the opening that gives it a bit of freshness. And, you know, I've used a good chunk of this one, although it wasn't full when I got it. I did get this as a partial, but I've definitely used this quite a few times, and in the fall I will probably wear this again. Also, very cool bottle. So, I mean, it looks like, I guess, part of the revolver. But it's a very nice bottle. Do like it, and this is a solid release. The original Azzaro as well, just while I'm on the topic, the original Azzaro Wanted is also not a bad fragrance. I do find it a little cloying at times, which is one of the reasons I haven't bought it, but I think it is definitely underrated from the house, and this one always seems to overshadow it, but I'm not sure that's necessarily fair. Just in my personal opinion, I do think it's still a very solid fragrance that probably should get a little more talk than it does. Next, I have one of the favorites of mine. I've talked about this one several times, and this one is Tom Ford Ombre Leather. Had to get this one in the collection. I really like this one. I managed to get a good price on this one as a partial. And so this is one that I've liked for a long time, and it was the one that made me like heavier leather fragrances. I know that, you know, Tuscan leather is way heavier, but this is a very leather dominant fragrance. And so before this fragrance, I didn't really like leather that much when it was prominent. But this one just does it so well. Beautiful sort of sweet suede that just dries down so, not clean in the sense of clean or soapy smelling, but the leather is just so clean. The suede is just such a nice suede smell that it works really well. I do get a hint of powderiness at times with this one that I'm not a huge fan of, but overall I think this is a fantastic fragrance, and again, this is a must-have for me. Definitely one that I wear a lot when it comes to fall, comes to winter. Always one of the first ones that I break out. Almost done with the designers. So this one I recently got. I also got a really good deal on this as a partial. Acqua di Gio. Didn't like this one at all when I first got it. Was not a fan. I think to me, it's so salty that it reminded me when I first got it a little bit of urine. I know that sounds weird, and it's one of the ones that I gave definitely more chances than I usually would because it had been talked about so much, and I had a decant. So I decided to wear it, 3 or 4 times. And I think around the third wearing is when this one really clicked for me and when I really liked it. So it has sort of this really fresh sea breeze kind of a vibe. And that's where the saltiness kind of comes in. I get definitely a bit of this sort of salty, fresh sea air kind of a vibe. And I really, really do enjoy this one. I think it's a very quality fragrance. Of course, it's been talked about a lot. I'm not sure it's my favorite from the line, just because I really did enjoy Profondo, And that one, of course, I had gotten this first, and as I've said before, I'm not a collector per se, so I wouldn't say buy all of the Acqua di Gios so that I have the whole collection or the whole set in my collection. I try and be fairly practical with the fragrances that I buy and that I own, and so this is probably the only Acqua di Gio I will own until I finish it, and in which case maybe I'll get Profondo instead, I'm not sure, or maybe I'll get something else entirely. But I do like this one. Very easy to wear, very inoffensive, very, very nice, has those beachy, summery vibes, and of course, this time of the year, it's fantastic. So, while we're on the topic of summer fragrances, I will introduce Spice Bomb Fresh. Now, I like this one despite a lot of people not liking this one, and I think it was discontinued. So this is kind of just a fresher take on the Spice Bomb DNA. It has a bit of an aquatic feel. It has a bit of saltiness. And I like the wateriness because it comes across a lot like clean water. But this one definitely has the Spice Bomb DNA underneath it. So where I don't really get any spices, say in Night Vision, I don't get any of the Spice Bomb DNA at all. This one I definitely do. So it's a bit easier to wear. So Spice Bomb Extreme especially can be very loud. Which, by the way, I also own that one. And so, especially if you're in close quarters, it can be a little bit harder to wear, especially if you go a lot. I usually only go two, maybe 3 sprays of this one, because it's very loud in the opening, and it's very spicy in the opening, very peppery. This one is not, so I can put on 5 sprays of this. I get decent performance, especially for a fresh fragrance. It's about 6 hours. But if I were to wear something to the office, it would definitely be this one over this one, because this one is just much more subdued, a little bit more quiet, and in that sense, I guess a better performer. I don't want to wear something that's going to choke people out in the office. But I have both these Spice Bombs. I might consider getting the OG, the original Spice Bomb, just because I really, really love it, and it is, to me, quite distinct from this guy. There's a lot of differences there, but this one is also fantastic. I think the reason I haven't bought it is because I have this one, and, do I really need both those Spice Bombs? Probably not. So last two, almost the 2 best, or 2 of my favorite. First one, Dolce & Gabbana one, EDP. This to me, again, another must-have. It's just such an easy fragrance to wear. It's very versatile, although it often gets talked about as a date fragrance, and it is a fantastic date fragrance, don't get me wrong. This is when I would usually wear to a date. This is actually the reason why I got rid of La Nuit de l'Homme. I got a little tired of it. I found it to perform not very well, and I would find myself reaching for this one more when I'm looking for a date fragrance. So I decided to keep this one and get rid of La Nuit de l'Homme because I just never wore it. This is one of those fragrances that really blew me away the first time I smelled it, and I was very, very happy with it. Beautiful tobacco and amber fragrance, and I'm actually not a big fan of amber, but this one does it really, really well. And it smells so good. And I have gotten some pretty good compliments with this one as well. Now, one of them, the most outrageous one that I actually got, I was seeing the girl at the time. So obviously that makes, you're not going to get an outrageous compliment, or usually not like that, from a complete stranger. But it was pretty outrageous. It was nice to hear, and it was nice that she enjoyed it, and this is an easy one to wear. I've even worn this one, by the way, to the office just because it's so pleasant and it's not super loud. And last one, but of course not least, and of course you might be expecting this. I've talked about this one a lot if you watch the channel. Terra de Armas Eau Très Fresh. Absolutely love this one. I've worn it pretty good chunk since I got it, even though it's just starting to show now. I am a fairly light sprayer, as I should mention, so I only spray probably about 3 or 4 sprays max of this one, and this is because it's fresh. But in any case, this is a great fragrance. If you don't like Terra de Armas, you should still try and get your nose on this one. I wouldn't say go out and blind buy it because you might hate it, but I don't really like the rest of the line. It's okay, the rest of the line. But this one I love. And I love it because it has a really strong bitter orange vibe. That bitterness stays for a long time. And of course it has that nice woody backbone. It has a little bit of aquatic nature in the opening. And it doesn't really have any of that pepperiness that I get from the other Terra de Armas fragrances. But absolutely love this one. This one, love it first sniff. There are, as I should mention, just wrapping this up, there are a couple more designer fragrances I do definitely want to buy. I love the original Allure Sport, not the O Extreme. I like the Allure Sport, so that one I definitely want to pick up. That's probably the next designer I will get. There's probably going to be a couple more in there, but another one I actually really liked that I was very surprised of was Toy Boy. Was not expecting to like such a rose prominent fragrance, but fantastic, very well put together fragrance, and very enjoyable to wear. So who knows, I might pick up those in the future, but I am trying to not buy too many because I want to use what I have. As I said, not super a collector, even though I have a lot of fragrances. I just like the variety, and I like to be practical with my fragrances, although of course it's very hard to not get a little out of control. Anyways, guys, do you guys have any of these fragrances? What do you have in your collection? Leave some comments down below. What's your favorite designer from your collection? Let me know. And as always, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.